I want to start today by looking at a receipt. I was cleaning out my wallet yesterday, and I found a receipt from the grocery store.
Oh boy, the dreaded grocery receipt.
Exactly. And I paid $4 for a plastic clamshell of basil. $4.
For what, like 10 leaves?
I think I used maybe 3 leaves for a pasta sauce, put the plastic container in the crisper drawer, and when I went to check on it 3 days later, it was just, black slime.
The cycle of shame.
Yeah.
We have all been there. It's almost a rite of passage for the modern home cook, that little container of liquefied herbs.
It feels like such a scam. But looking at the source material for today's deep dive, which is Simple Steps to Success, Herbs by William Denna, I realized that I'm not just wasting money. I'm fundamentally misunderstanding what these things even are.
Have you mean?
Well, we treat herbs like disposable garnishes, right? Like salt or pepper that just happens to be green. But Denna portrays them as these rugged structural architectural survivors.
That is the core pivot of this book. And it's absolutely why we chose it for our deep dive today. It's all about moving away from that grocery store mindset.
The mindset where herbs are just a flavor packet you buy and discard.
Precisely.
Yeah.
To a horticultural mindset. William Denn is a gardener first, a horticulturist. He's not giving us pesco recipes here.
No, not at all.
He's looking at soil mechanics, propagation hormones, landscape design, and, the actual biology of these plants.
And that is exactly what we're digging into today. We are going to deconstruct the herb garden. We're going to look at the soil chemistry required to keep these things alive, because apparently I've been killing them with kindness.
A very common mistake.
We're going to talk about the actual physiology of why a plant gets leggy, which is a word I've heard but never really understood. And we are going deep on what the book makes sound like the dark arts of propagation.
Dark arts might be a little dramatic.
It feels dramatic.
But, when you learn how to clone a plant or divide a root ball with 2 forks, it does feel a bit like alchemy. It's magical.
It feels like printing money. I mean, if you master this, you literally never have to pay $4 for that slimy basil ever again.
Right.
But it requires ignoring a lot of the common wisdom people have about tending to a garden.
It really does. It requires, getting your hands dirty and understanding the science that's happening just beneath the surface.
Okay, so let's start with that design aspect. I think most people, myself included, we compartmentalize our outdoor spaces. You have the flower bed, which is the pretty part for looking at.
Right, the ornamental section.
And then you have the herb pots, and they're usually hidden away near the back door or like by the compost bin. They're the functional, ugly part. It's like we're embarrassed by them.
We are. We treat them like a utility.
But Den seems to think this is a massive waste of potential.
It is a huge waste.
Yeah.
Den argues that the segregation of ornamental and edible is a completely artificial boundary that we've created in our own minds.
It doesn't exist in nature.
Not at all. If you look at the structure of herbs, objectively, ignore the flavor for just a second and just look at the form. They can rival almost any perennial you'd buy for aesthetics. They have texture, they have color, they have architecture.
Okay, so he points to the allium family as a prime example. Now, to me, allium means onions, garlic, chives. It means dinner. It implies, bad breath.
Sure, the culinary association is strong.
But in the book, the photos of these things, they look like modern art sculptures.
They are incredibly structural. Take something like Allium giganteum, the giant allium. It puts up these 4-foot-tall, perfectly rigid spikes, and on top is a perfect purple sphere.
It looks like something from a Dr. Seuss book.
It does. And in a mixed border, that geometry, that perfect sphere, it just floats above the softer foliage of other plants. It draws the eye instantly. And yeah, it's related to the chive you chop up for your potatoes, but it's doing some serious heavy lifting in the landscape design.
So it's not just a crop, it becomes a centerpiece. It's absolutely a centerpiece. And then you have the chive itself, Allium scanopricum. Even that, with its little purple pom-poms, it can create a beautiful rhythm if you plant it in a line, like a little hedge.
A hedge of chives.
Why not? Den suggests integrating these right into mixed beds with your standard flowers. Why hide the chives? Put them right next to the roses. They actually help repel aphids, so it's functional and beautiful.
That's a great point. It's companion planting.
It's smart planting.
Then there's the Sonara, the globe artichoke.
Mm.
I have only ever seen these on a pizza or maybe in a jar of oil. I had no idea what the actual plant looked like.
They are absolute beasts, glorious monsters.
They look prehistoric. The leaves are enormous and silver.
Den calls them statement plants, and he's absolutely right. They have these massive, serrated, silver gray leaves that arch out like a fountain. A single plant can be 6 feet wide.
So if you have a dead corner in a garden that needs some drama, or you need to hide an ugly fence, you drop in a globe artichoke. And honestly, even if you never eat the flower bud, the foliage alone just anchors the entire space.
So it's about the texture.
It adds a texture that you just don't get from standard bedding plants like, petunias or impatiens. It's bold.
So we need to stop treating them like second-class citizens. Okay, the book also brings up this concept of the parterre. Now, I'll be honest, this sounded very French and very, very expensive. Can we break down what a parterre actually is in this context?
It is French. And historically, yes, it was the playground of kings. It's a
Oh.
formal garden layout on a flat surface, consisting of planting beds edged in stone or tightly clipped hedges,
Hmm.
usually in a very symmetrical pattern.
Right, I'm picturing the gardens at Versailles, those intricate knots and swirls made of hedges.
That's the one. That's the classic image.
Okay, but I don't have a landscaping crew or, a palace.
And that's the pivot. That's the brilliant part of what Den suggests. He says you can adapt this for the home gardener using herbs.
How?
Usually, a parterre uses boxwood for the borders.
Yeah.
But boxwood is expensive, it's very slow-growing, and it's super prone to blight these days.
I've heard about that, the boxwood blight.
It's devastating. So
Oh.
instead of boxwood, you're using what?
Let me guess. Thyme.
Thyme, dwarf lavender, germander, or santalina. You use these low-growing, woody herbs to create the geometric lines. The triangles, diamonds, squares. You clip them tight to keep the shape defined.
And it would smell amazing.
It smells incredible when you brush past it.
Oh.
And it provides winter structure because many of these are evergreen, so your garden doesn't look totally bare in January.
So you're basically painting with plants. You're building a geometric rug out of time.
Precisely. And it's functional. Inside those geometric lines, you can fill the spaces with looser herbs like parsley or basil. It brings a sense of order to the chaos that a vegetable patch can sometimes become.
I love that. Order to the chaos. That brings us to the unexpected locations section.
Mhm.
The book mentions growing herbs in railway sleepers and stone troughs. This seems to go against the idea that vegetables need deep, rich, fluffy soil. I always thought if I didn't have a perfect raised bed with, premium organic soil, I couldn't grow anything.
And that's the big misconception. Most of the culinary herbs we love, rosemary, thyme, oregano, sage, they're Mediterranean.
Okay, so what does that mean in practical terms?
It means they evolved on rocky, windswept hillsides in Greece or Italy. They don't want deep, rich, water-retentive loam. They actually want drainage. They want to struggle a little bit.
They like it rough.
They do. They really do. If you pamper them with too much nitrogen and too much water, they get soft, they lose their flavor, and they rot over the winter.
So my over-attentive watering is actually killing them.
It's killing them with kindness. Didden mentions vertical planting in wall crevices. If you stick a thyme plant in a rich, damp vegetable patch, it might rot. If you jam it into a gap in a dry stone wall where the water runs off instantly, it thrives.
It prevents wet feet. I saw that term in the book.
Wet feet is the enemy. It's the #1 killer of Mediterranean herbs. It leads directly to root rot.
I love that image, though. A wall that smells like lemon thyme when you walk past it. And it utilizes vertical space, which is fantastic for our urban listeners who might only have a balcony or a tiny courtyard.
Exactly. You don't need land. You just need a crack in a wall and some sun.
Okay, now, before we get too cozy with this idea that everything in the garden is our friend and we should just, graze our way through the landscape,
Oh, I know where this is going.
there was a section in the source that actually pulled me up short. It's titled Cautionary Herbs.
This is a vital section. Absolutely crucial.
I honestly just assumed that if it's in a book about herbs, it's safe to put in my salad. I thought if it's green and leafy and it's in the herb section of the garden center, I can eat it. But that is seemingly not the case.
That is a very dangerous assumption. We have to remember the historical definition of an herb. It wasn't just flavoring for food.
Right.
It was any plant used for medicine, for perfume, for dyeing fabrics, or for other household uses. And medicine, in the pre-modern era, often meant potent alkaloids that could either cure you or kill you, depending on the dosage.
The line was very fine.
Terrifyingly fine.
So the list includes Aconitum monkshood and digitalis, which is foxglove. Now, I see foxgloves everywhere. They're beautiful. They have those tall spikes of bill-shaped flowers, usually pink or purple with little spots inside. They look like they're straight out of a fairy tale.
They are classic cottage garden plants. And every single part of the foxglove is toxic.
Every part. The leaves, the stem, the flower.
The seeds, the roots, all of it. It contains cardiac glycosides.
Which is, that's heart medication, essentially.
Digoxin is derived from it, yes. A standardized dose regulates heart rhythm, but the therapeutic dose and the lethal dose are terrifyingly close. If you mistake a young foxglove leaf for something like comfrey or spinach, which has happened to people, it can stop your heart. So Den is very explicit in the book. Never eat a herb unless you are 100% sure you have identified it.
So don't graze blindly. Then there's rutagravulins. This one isn't just about eating it. The book says it. It fights back if you even touch it.
Rue is fascinating. It's a historic herb. You often find it in old monastery gardens. It has this beautiful blue-green, almost feathery foliage, but it is phototoxic.
Phototoxic. Let's break that down.
It's a chemical defense mechanism. The sap of the plant contains compounds called furanocoumarins.
Furanocoumarins. That sounds intense.
It is. If you get that sap on your skin, nothing happens immediately. You might not even notice it. You could brush against it while weeding and think nothing of it.
Okay.
But that chemical sensitizes your skin to ultraviolet light.
So you go out in the sun.
And you get massive painful blisters exactly where the sap touched you. It looks like a severe chemical burn. It's not a sunburn. It's a specific reaction to the sun triggered by the plant. It can leave scars that last for years.
That is horrifying. It's like a vampire plant. It literally makes you allergic to the sun.
It's a powerful reminder that these plants are complex chemical factories. They evolved these compounds to defend themselves against herbivores, like us. We have to respect that. Just because it's labeled an herb doesn't mean it's lunch.
Okay, point taken. Respect the chemistry. Rule number 1. Don't poison the guests. Let's move to the foundation of everything. If we want to grow the safe stuff, and even the dangerous stuff, because they are pretty, we have to talk about dirt.
Soil science.
Yeah.
The unsexy but absolutely essential part of the process.
The source material has this principle that I loved. Think before you plant. Den says a plant under duress will never perform well, and the number one cause of duress is the soil.
It's the measure twice, cut once of gardening. It's all about the prep work. If the soil is poor, the plant is constantly stressed. If the plant is stressed, its immune system drops.
Just like a person.
Exactly like a person. And then it gets bugs, it gets mold, it fails to thrive. You can spray all the pesticides you want, but if the roots are unhappy, the plant is doomed from the start.
So how do we diagnose our dirt? How do I know if my soil is stressing my plants out? The book outlines something called the drainage test, and it seemed almost too low-tech to be accurate.
It's so effective because it tests the actual conditions on the ground. You don't need a lab. You just need a shovel and a bucket of water.
Okay, walk us through it. What do I do?
You dig a hole, roughly the size of a spade's blade, so maybe a foot square and a foot deep.
In the spot where I want to plant.
In that exact spot. Then you fill it with water and let it drain away completely.
Okay, that seems easy enough. And then I fill it again right away?
No, and this is the crucial step that people often miss. You let it drain away, and then you wait overnight.
Why overnight?
You want to saturate the surrounding soil first. If you just test it on bone-dry soil, the water will just run off into all the cracks and give you a false reading. You want to know how the soil behaves when it's already wet, like after a heavy rain.
Okay, that makes sense. So I wait overnight, then the next day you fill it again.
Exactly. And that's when the clock starts. You watch that second filling of water. If it drains away in an hour or two, you're golden. You have excellent drainage.
And if it doesn't?
If that water's still sitting there for half a day, or if it's still a puddle when you come home from work, you have a drainage problem. You probably have heavy clay soil or maybe a high water table.
And if I have that standing water, planting rosemary or lavender there is basically a death sentence.
It's 100% fatal. They will rot. You absolutely have to intervene.
Okay, so let's talk about interventions. The book mentioned a few, but one term stood out: double digging. This sounded like a CrossFit workout disguised as gardening.
It is a workout, I won't lie. It's very labor intensive. But it's the only way to fix deep compaction in the soil.
Why would my soil be compacted deep down?
It could be from construction, heavy foot traffic over years, or just the natural settling of heavy clay particles. You end up with what's called a hard pan, a layer of soil that's almost as hard as concrete, maybe a foot down.
And the roots can't get through that.
The roots hit that and stop. The water hits that in pools. It's a barrier. You need to break it.
So how does double digging work exactly?
You dig a trench about a spade's depth and a spade's width. You take all that topsoil out and you put it in a wheelbarrow or on a tarp next to you.
Okay, so now I have an empty trench.
Right. Now you're standing in that empty trench. You take a garden fork and you break up the bottom of the trench. That's the subsoil, the hard pan layer. You don't take it out. You just fracture it. You stick the fork in as deep as you can and wiggle it back and forth.
So you're creating fissures for water and roots.
Exactly. You're aerating 2 layers deep. Then you dig the next trench right alongside the first one, but this time you flip that topsoil forward into the empty trench you just loosened, and you repeat that process across the entire garden bed.
It sounds backbreaking.
It is, but you only have to do it once every few years, and it can completely transform a garden bed from a swamp into a thriving environment.
Okay, the other metric is pH. The book suggests a simple test tube kit. Is this really necessary? Can't I just look at the soil and guess?
You can't see chemistry, and the pH matters enormously because of a phenomenon called nutrient lockout.
Lockout, what does that mean?
Think of it this way. You can have soil that is technically rich in all the good stuff, iron, magnesium, calcium. But if the soil is too acidic with a low pH or too alkaline with a high pH, those chemical elements form bonds that the plant roots physically cannot break.
So the food is there, but the plant can't eat it.
It's locked in a safe. The
Yeah.
plant is essentially starving in the middle of a buffet. It's a chemistry problem, not a nutrient problem.
So we test. If it's acidic, the book says to add lime. If it's alkaline, well, that's harder to fix, isn't it?
It is harder. Adding sulfur can help, but the best universal buffer, the thing that helps in almost any situation, is adding organic matter. Compost. Compost tends to bring everything towards a neutral pH over time.
Speaking of compost, the diagram in the book really emphasizes layering green versus brown waste. I usually just throw everything, banana peels, dead leaves, coffee grounds, into a pile and hope for the best. Why does this distinction matter so much?
It's all about the carbon to nitrogen ratio. This is the engine of decomposition.
Okay.
Green waste, that's your grass clippings, your vegetable peels, soft leafy stuff, is very high in nitrogen. Nitrogen is the fuel for the bacteria. It's the hot component that gets things cooking.
So that's the accelerator.
Exactly. And brown waste, that's your cardboard, twigs, dry leaves, straw, that's all carbon. Carbon provides structure and, crucially, air pockets.
Ah, so it stops it from becoming a sludge?
Precisely. If you only have green waste, the pile goes anaerobic. It runs out of oxygen, it compacts into a slimy, stinking sludge, and it smells like a sewer.
I have definitely created that exact pile before.
We all have. But if you only have brown waste, nothing happens. It just sits there for years because there's no nitrogen to feed the bacteria that do the work. You need to layer them like a lasagna. Den suggests a mix. If your pile is smelly and wet, add more cardboard. If it's dry and cold, add more fresh grass clippings. You're essentially cooking a recipe for new soil.
Okay, let's assume we've fixed our soil. It drains, the pH is neutral, we've double dug until our backs ache. Now we want plants. And sure, we could go buy them, but the book devotes a huge, fascinating section to propagation. This is the free plants chapter.
This is where you stop being a consumer and start being a producer, a grower.
Let's talk seeds first. The distinction between large and fine seeds seemed trivial until I saw the photos in the book. Some of these seeds are basically dust.
Dust is the right word for things like lobelia or even some types of thyme. You can barely see them.
The technique for large seeds is called dibbing, which is just a fancy word for poking a hole with your finger. But for the fine seeds, the book suggests not burying them at all.
This is what I call the vermiculite hack. And for a beginner, it changes everything.
Okay, tell us about the hack. What is vermiculite?
Normally, people sow seeds and then cover them with a layer of soil or compost. But heavy compost can suffocate tiny seeds. Or, if it dries out, it forms a hard crust on top that the tiny, delicate seedling can't break through.
I've seen that crust before.
Right. So Dina recommends covering these fine seeds with just a light dusting of vermiculite instead.
That's the shiny gold flaky stuff you sometimes see in potting mix.
Yes, it's a mineral, mica rock, that's been heated until it pops like popcorn. So it's incredibly light, it holds water like a tiny sponge, but most importantly, it is translucent. It lets light through.
I always thought seeds needed darkness to germinate.
That's a common myth. Some do, but many herbs are what we call light-dependent germinators. Their biology basically tells them, if it's dark, I must be buried too deep. Don't grow.
So if you bury them under a half-inch of soil?
They just stay dormant. They never wake up. The vermiculite keeps them moist, but lets that crucial light signal through to trigger the waking up process.
That explains so much. That explains why my mint seeds never came up last year. I buried them alive.
You likely did. You suffocated them in the dark.
The other thing regarding seeds is the timeline. The source talks about patience versus speed. Some things are sprinters, some are marathon runners.
Chives are total sprinters. They can pop up in just a few days. But they're very fragile. They look like tiny little green hairs. If you put them in hot sun too soon, they just fry.
And then there's fennel.
Fennel is the marathon runner. Fennel can take a month, maybe even longer. just to show a tiny green shoot.
A month? I feel like I would have thrown the pot away by then, assuming it was a complete dud.
And that's the mistake so many people make. They think it's failed, so they stop watering it, or they dump it out to reuse the pot. You have to label your pots and you have to trust the process. Keep the soil moist, keep it warm, and just wait.
Okay, so once these little seedlings finally come up, there's this terrifying process called pricking out. This sounds like some kind of delicate surgery.
It requires a steady hand for sure. You can't leave 50 tiny seedlings in one tiny pot. They'll strangle each other, competing for light and nutrients. You have to move them to their own individual pots.
And the rule, which Den really emphasizes, is handle by the leaves, never ever the stem.
Never the stem.
Why is that? A leaf seems so much more fragile. If I rip a leaf, isn't that really bad for the plant?
Think about the biology of it. If you tear a leaf, the plant is annoyed. It's lost a solar panel. But it has other solar panels and it can grow another one. It's a recoverable injury.
Okay.
But if you crush the stem, even slightly, just a little pinch between your fingers, you collapse the xylem and phloem.
And the plumbing system.
Exactly. You've just cut off the water supply from the roots and the sugar supplies in the leaves. The plant is dead. It just doesn't know it yet. It will wilt and die in a day or two.
So you're supposed to pick it up by one of those first little seed leaves, one of those generic-looking leaves, and just sort of dangle it into the new pot.
Like lifting a kitten by the scruff of its neck. It looks rough, but it's actually the safest and kindest way to do it.
Okay, so that's seeds. But the source material calls the next section advanced propagation. This is where we stop acting like gardeners and start acting like med scientists. We're talking about cloning.
We are talking about cuttings. It is essentially cloning. You are taking a piece of the parent plant to create a new plant that is a perfect genetic duplicate.
Let's start with softwood cuttings. When and how do we do this?
This is usually done in late spring or early summer when the plant is growing vigorously. You're looking for new growth, a shoot that is about 3 to 4 inches long. But the key is, it can't be flowering.
Why no flowers? That seems like the healthiest part of the plant.
Because flowers take an enormous amount of energy. The plant's entire biological imperative shifts to reproduction. If the cutting has a flower, the plant is genetically programmed to keep that flower alive and produce seeds, not to grow roots.
So it's a choice for the plant.
It's a choice. And it will always choose the flower over the roots. If you leave the flower on, the cutting will put all its energy there, and it will likely fail to root and just wither away.
So you find a non-flowering shoot, cut it below a leaf node. What's a leaf node?
It's the little bump on the stem where a leaf or a branch emerges. That area is packed with undifferentiated cells, the plant's version of stem cells, that can be told to become roots.
Okay, now my favorite term in the entire book, lazy cuttings. This sounds like my kind of gardening.
Oh, also known as semi-ripe or heel cuttings. Yeah. And it's called lazy because for the initial move, you often don't even need a knife.
So how do you do it?
You find a side shoot on a woody herb like rosemary or lavender, and you just you pull it downwards, away from the main stem.
And you just rip it off. That feels so wrong.
You do. And what happens is as it pulls away, it tears a little strip of bark off the main stem along with it.
That sounds really destructive. I feel like I'm hurting the main plant.
That little strip of bark is called the heel. And it's not destructive, it's actually strategic. That heel contains a very high concentration of those undifferentiated cells and natural rooting hormones. It's the part of the plant that is most ready to switch jobs from being a branch to growing roots.
So the trauma of being ripped off actually helps it root.
Biology is often about responding to trauma. You trim the ragged end of the heel with a knife to clean it up, strip off the bottle leaves so they don't rot in the soil, and you stick it in some gritty compost. It has a much higher success rate for woody herbs than a clean, straight cut.
That is fascinating. So you're leveraging the plant's own repair mechanisms to make a new plant. Speaking of aggressive growth, let's talk about mint. The source has a specific method for it called root cuttings.
Mint is a thug. It's a beautiful, wonderful, delicious thug, but it's an aggressive colonizer. It spreads underground using these thick, white, fleshy roots called rhizomes.
Oh, if you've ever tried to dig up a patch of mint, you've seen them. They look like white worms going everywhere.
They look exactly like worms. And to propagate mint, you don't even need any leaves. You could just dig up some of these thick roots, cut them into 2-inch sections, and just bury them horizontally in a pot, maybe an inch deep.
Like planting a potato.
It's exactly the same principle. They have so much energy stored in that thick root that they will sprout new shoots from those buried segments. It's almost foolproof.
Which brings us to the most violent-sounding method of all, division. The source describes a method using 2 kitchen forks back to back.
This is for clump-forming herbaceous plants like chives or thyme or oregano that have gotten too big and woody. You know when a clump gets old and the center of it dies out and you get that sort of donut shape?
Yes. It looks bald in the middle. I always wondered what caused that.
Yep. That's because the plant is suffocating itself. The old growth in the middle is too dense. It needs space. So you dig up the whole clump.
Okay, I've got my big clump of chives out of the ground. Now what?
Now you take 2 garden forks, or kitchen forks for smaller plants, and you insert them back to back right into the center of the clump, and then you just leverage them apart.
You pry it open like a clam.
You literally pry it open. You tease the root ball apart. It minimizes the damage to the individual roots compared to just slicing it with a spade. Although for really tough, woody plants, Din says you can just take a sharp knife or a spade and slice the root ball in half, or even into quarters.
It feels so wrong to just take a spade and slice a plant's roots in half.
It feels brutal, I know, but it actually rejuvenates the plant. By dividing it, you create new edges where fresh, vigorous growth can happen. You turn one tired old plant into 4 vigorous new ones for free.
There's one more division technique mentioned for plugs. This is for mat-forming herbs like chamomile.
Chamomile, or creeping thyme, the ones that grow like a carpet. You can literally dig up a section of this carpet, put it in a tray, and then just cut it into tiny squares with a knife like you're cutting a pan of brownies, maybe 3/4 of an inch square.
Tiny plant brownies. I love it.
You plant each of those little squares, those little plugs, in its own pot. And because they are natural spreaders, they will very quickly grow outwards to fill the new pot. It's the fastest way to get a lot of ground cover.
So we've got our plants growing. We've cloned them, we've grown them from seed. Now we have to keep them alive. And there's a maintenance tip that sounds completely counterintuitive: pinching out.
This is the hardest thing for new gardeners to do emotionally. You have a seedling. It's finally growing tall and straight. You're so proud of it. And the advice is, cut the top off.
Why? Why would I decapitate my baby basil plant? I wanted to get big.
Because if you don't, it will just keep growing straight up. It'll become tall, spindly, and have only one stem. This is because of a process called apical dominance.
Apical dominance. Let's unpack that.
The main central growing tip, the apex, produces a hormone called auxin. This hormone flows downwards through the plant, and it actively suppresses the side buds from growing. It basically tells the plant, hey, don't branch out. Just focus all energy on going straight up towards the light.
So the side branches are being chemically told to stay asleep.
Exactly. They're dormant. But when you pinch out that top 2 to 4 inches, literally nipping out the growing tip with your fingernails, you remove the source of that suppressing hormone.
And the side buds wake up.
The suppression is lifted, and suddenly all those little side buds in the leaf axils wake up and start growing. You trade 1 vertical stem for 4 or 5 or 6 lateral ones.
You sacrifice height for bushiness.
Precisely. And you get a much stockier, stronger plant with way more branches, which means way more leaves to harvest later on.
Okay, but what if I didn't do that? What if I have what the source calls a leggy plant? I have a rosemary in a pot that looks like a tiny palm tree made of sticks. It's all woody at the bottom with no leaves and just a little green tuft at the very top. Is it ruined?
Not necessarily. Dan offers a fantastic rescue technique for this exact problem. It involves repotting.
Okay.
You take the plant out of its current pot, you find a deeper pot, and you bury it deep. You cover those bare, woody stems with fresh compost right up to the first set of green leaves.
So you're burying half the plant. Doesn't that just rot the stem?
With many herbs,
Mm.
especially woody ones like rosemary or lavender, no. The buried stem detects the darkness and the moisture, and it switches modes. It starts pushing out what are called adventitious roots all along the buried wood.
So the stem becomes a root.
It does. The plant becomes shorter visually, but underground, it's developing a massive new root system to support fresh, bushy growth up top.
That is a great save. I have definitely thrown away plants that looked leggy, thinking they were past their prime.
Never give up on an herb until it's crispy and brown all over. They are incredibly resilient survivors.
Speaking of survivors, we have to mention mint management again. The source is very, very firm on this. Keep it contained.
Mint is a monster. It should come with a warning label. It should always be grown in a pot. Always.
Even if you want it in a flower bed, the book says to plant it in a pot sunk into the ground.
And, this is critical, with the rim of the pot sticking up an inch or so above the soil line.
Why the rim?
To stop the runners, the suckers, from jumping over the edge and escaping into the garden. And they will try.
And don't let the pot sit on bare soil.
Never. The roots will grow through the drainage holes at the bottom of the pot, escape into the earth, and then they will colonize your entire garden. It creates a mat so dense that nothing else can grow. You have to be ruthless with it. It's a jailbreak artist.
Okay, let's fast forward. We've grown the plants, we've managed them, now we want to buy more, or maybe we just want to skip the whole seed stage. The source has a very useful checklist for buying healthy herbs. What should we be looking for at the garden center?
It's so easy to be seduced by the top of the plant. You see pretty flowers, nice green leaves, and you think, that's a healthy plant. But Den says you need to look at the feet.
The roots again. It always comes back to the roots.
Always the roots. First, pick up the pot. If there are thick roots spiraling wildly out of the drainage holes at the bottom, the plant is pot-bound.
Is that bad? It sounds like it has a strong root system.
It means it's a stressed plant. It has been in that tiny pot for way too long. It has run out of nutrients and space. The roots are circling desperately, looking for a way out. Even if you plant it, though those roots might just keep spiraling in that shape and never actually spread out into your soil, it's set in its ways.
So what do we want to see instead?
If you can, gently try to slide the plant out of the pot. A good nursery won't mind if you're careful. You want to see healthy, white, branching roots that are visible, but not a solid mat.
Not a basket of roots.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you see a solid brown mat of spiraling roots with almost no soil visible, a root ball that holds the perfect shape of the pot, put it back. That plant is starving and stressed.
And what about weeds in the pot? I see that all the time.
That's a huge red flag. If there is moss or little weeds like bittercress growing on the soil surface of the pot, it's a sign of neglect. It means that plant has been sitting there on a bench for a very long time, probably getting overwatered or ignored. You want fresh, clean compost.
Okay, we've bought the good stuff. Now the payoff, harvesting. But the source material expands our menu. It's not just about the leaves.
No, we miss out on so much flavor and beauty by just ignoring the rest of the plant's life cycle.
Flowers. I usually pinch the flowers off to keep the leaves growing, but the book says we should eat them.
Absolutely. Many herb flowers are edible delicacies. Chive flowers, those little purple pom-poms, taste like a mild, sweet onion. You can crumble the individual florets over a potato salad or an omelet.
It looks like something from a Michelin star restaurant, but it's literally growing like a weed in your backyard.
Nasturtium flowers are another one. They have a wonderful peppery kick like watercress, and their bright orange and yellow colors look stunning on a plate. Borage flowers taste exactly like cucumber, and they look like beautiful little blue stars. You can freeze them in ice cubes for summer cocktails.
And seeds. I think we forget that the seeds are the spice in so many cases.
Dill and fennel are the classic examples. If your fennel plant bolts, which means it sends up that tall flower stalk because of heat stress, don't despair and chotch it down. Let it happen. Let it flower. Let the seeds form.
And then what?
Then, as the seeds start to turn brown and dry, you just cup your hand under the flower head and gently rub them off. You have fresh fennel seed right there.
Is it really that different from the stuff in a jar?
It's night and day. The essential oils in seeds are very volatile. They evaporate over time. Fresh fennel seed harvested that morning is explosive and aromatic compared to the gray dust in your spikes rack that's been there since 2015.
And roots.
Horseradish. You dig up the root in the fall, you wash it, you peel it, and you grate it. It's so pungent, it's so powerful, it will clear your sinuses instantly. It's a completely different experience from the mild, vinegary stuff in the jarred sauce.
This whole discussion really drives home the idea of the life cycle. You aren't just harvesting a leaf and then the plant is done. You're engaging with it at every single stage: flower, seed, root.
Precisely. It connects you to the seasons in a much deeper way. You eat the leaves in the spring, the flowers in the summer, the seeds in the autumn, and the roots in the winter.
Now, for those listening who might not have a massive backyard or who just want a tangible project for this weekend, the source material includes a great DIY project, the wooden planter.
This is a fantastic entry point. It's a custom-built window box.
The specs seem pretty straightforward: timber board about 6 inches wide, some self-tapping screws. But the detail that really stood out to me was the drilling. The instructions explicitly say, drill half-inch holes in the base every 4 inches.
That seems like a lot of holes.
It basically turns the bottom into a sieve.
Exactly. Remember the Mediterranean origin. Herbs hate wet feet. In a wooden box, if it rains heavily for 3 days, that box can become a swamp. The wood swells up, the soil turns to sludge. You need aggressive, immediate drainage. If you skip the holes, you are building a coffin, not a planter.
Now, the part of this project that I found most genius was the slug defense.
Yes.
The copper tape.
Slugs are the enemy. They love young, tender herbs. They will mow down an entire crop of basil seedlings in a single night.
Yeah.
But apparently, copper tape stops them. How does a simple piece of tape stop a slug?
It's basically a low-voltage electric fence.
Really? How?
The slug slime is a saline solution, so it's electrically conductive. When the slime trail touches the copper, there's a chemical reaction between the two that creates a tiny galvanic shock. It's not enough to kill the slug, but it's unpleasant.
So it's like a little static shock.
Exactly. It's an electric fence. The slug touches it, feels the zap, and
Hmm.
turns around. It won't cross the barrier. So you just tape a continuous strip all the way around the box. But there's a critical warning. Do not let foliage bridge over the copper.
Slugs are determined. They're smart. If a single leaf from your basil plant is draping over the side of the box and touching the ground or the wall below the tape, the slug will use that leaf as a bridge to bypass your copper tape fence.
They'll climb over on the leaf like it's a siege ladder.
It's a perfect siege ladder. You have to keep the perimeter clear. Think of it like a castle moat. You have to keep the drawbridge up.
So let's summarize where we've been today. We started by realizing that herbs aren't just ingredients. They are architectural plants that can anchor a whole garden design.
We learned that soil drainage is everything. You have to do the bucket test, dig a hole, and see what happens.
We learned to hack seed germination with vermiculite because some seeds actually need light. We learned to clone our plants with lazy cuttings by, ripping them apart.
And we learned to rejuvenate old, tired plants by either burying them deeper or stabbing them with forks and prying them open.
And we learned that not everything green is edible. The cautionary herbs remind us to respect the power and the chemistry of these plants.
And finally, we built a fortress against slugs using galvanic shock therapy.
It's been a comprehensive journey. It really, really changes the way I look at that little plastic packet of herbs at the store. It seems so incomplete now.
It is incomplete. It's a disconnected fragment of a living system. When you grow it yourself, you understand the plant's needs. Its need for light, for drainage, for space. You understand why it tastes the way it does. You realize that the weed you are about to pull is actually a valuable medicinal plant, or that the dead plant just needs to be buried a little deeper.
Which brings me to a provocative thought to leave our listeners with. The source mentioned non-culinary herbs like aloe vera and echinacea. We tend to separate our gardens into food and not food, but if we stop looking at herbs merely as flavor enhancers, how does that change the way we design our living spaces?
That's a great question. Could a garden be entirely edible and medicinal without it having to look like a farm?
Could you replace your traditional boxwood hedge with a clipped rosemary hedge?
Could you replace your shade-loving hostas with comfrey, which is an amazing medicinal plant? Could you use creeping thyme as a lawn substitute that you can walk on and it smells incredible?
Imagine a landscape where every single plant serves a purpose medicine, food, structure, a pollinator attractor, and it also looks beautiful while doing it. That's the potential here.
It's a return to the old apothecary garden of the past, but with a modern design aesthetic. It's the ultimate in functional design.
So that's your homework, listeners. Don't just go buy the basil. Go out and perform a drainage test. Go dig a hole in your yard and fill it with water. Just see what happens.
And maybe try ripping a branch off a rosemary bush gently.
Ask your neighbor first, maybe. Or go pinch out a seedling and feel that mix of guilt and triumph. Get your hands in the soil. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Happy gardening.